Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to convince you that Viego is an amazing champion and should be played if you want to carry in solo queue. We're going to look at his abilities, his strengths and weaknesses, and my top 3 tips to carry. This is why Viego is your ticket to Diamond. Also, YouTube tells me that only a small percentage of the people that watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you have been enjoying the content, consider subscribing. Also guys, I need to address the elephant in the room with Viego. With a kit as strong as his, he is wildly underpowered on release, boasting just over a 40% win rate. I wouldn't be surprised if Riot is a hotfix buff before I get this video out, but just know that he is weak. But after playing him, I think I know what they can do to fix him and make him meta, but we'll talk about that at the end of the video, so make sure to stick around. Before we get into his abilities, I need to say one thing. Why in the world is there so much confusing math, Riot? Like seriously, I can't read through these and comprehend what's going on. I just have to test it out in game and try to give you a 1-sentence summary. These champions that they're pumping out just keep getting more and more complicated. Like this guy can be any champion in the game. What? Viego's passive is called Sovereign's Domination, and basically this is what allows Viego to become different champions. Whenever he gets a kill or assist, he can take over their body and gets their 3 non-ultimate abilities. While he's in a body, he can still cast his ultimate, which will bring him back to his normal self upon casting, or his ultimate can allow him to get an execute and jump to another body. Viego's Q is Blade of the Ruined King. Wow, super creative. Basically, this is just a thrust that does damage like Yasuo or Yone. There's some other on-hit damage, healing, and different ratios for monsters, but overall, this ability is straightforward. It's a jab that does damage. It's an auto attack cancel. Yeah. Viego's W is Spectral Maw. Viego can wind this up and throw out a stun and also dash a short distance. You can also use this ability instantly to dash the same distance, but you won't stun. You'll have to charge it up a little bit to get the stun. Unfortunately, this dash doesn't go over walls, so it makes him pretty immobile. Viego's E is Harrowed Path, and I have to say, this ability is amazing and really works well with his theme and kit. I have to say, Riot, I like this one. One thing I have noticed with Viego is that he kind of has a hard time getting to his target, so you really need to learn how to use his Shroud well. It's similar to Akali and Kiana, but can be much bigger. You can run around undetected all around a piece of terrain if you cast it into it, or it can be used as a basic shroud. While inside the shroud, he gains bonus attack speed and movement speed, so learning how to fight around this is key. Viego's ultimate is kind of complicated to explain, but basically he jumps to an enemy dealing lots of damage, and this should mainly be used as an execute to finish off the enemy or as a gap closer if you know you can finish them with your normal abilities. Viego can also use this when exiting a possession and use it to bounce from champion to champion in a reset scenario. Viego has a couple of weaknesses that are leading him to such a low win rate right now, and even if he gets buffed, you will need to know how to play around these. His first weakness is his clear speed. After hopping into a couple of games, I realized how bad he is at clearing the jungle, and I think this leads to other problems that he has later in the game, and it really starts here. I was playing one game against a Kha'Zix who was making mistake after mistake with his pathing, but kept getting higher CS numbers than me, and at the end of the game had a multi-level advantage. I wasn't even ganking early, I just couldn't clear my camps fast enough. I also tried starting E for attack speed and Q for more damage. I just found that he has little to no AoE damage, so Krugs and Chickens are off limits in the early game. He also takes a lot of damage from the single target camps like the buffs and Gromp. I'm not sure how he got onto this patch to be released with these glaring issues, but he is way behind other junglers like Elise and Olaf when it comes to something so basic like clearing jungle camps. Viego's second weakness is gap closing. Viego reminds me a lot of Pyke because once you use your main abilities, you really can't catch up to your target and you rely a lot on resetting your ultimate. And if you miss your W, there's little to no chance you can catch up with the person you're trying to target. You are very reliant on team fights where your teammates can get an initial kill so that you can use your passive possession to get a couple of resets and just do a lot of damage. Also, early game, his ultimate doesn't do that much damage, so it's hard to get the initial kill to even get into a first possession. Viego's third weakness is that he's auto attack based. Viego is kind of a mix between Akali, Pyke, and Yasuo, but doesn't do any of those things particularly amazing. He has a reliance on auto attacks, but has a hard time sticking to his opponents to actually weave those auto attacks in. He's also really strong with his autos when he can get a possession and use those abilities to layer in his autos, but just as regular Viego, he has a couple of troubles and it's kind of hard for him to get rolling. Number 4 is kind of a little bonus weakness because I like to keep it to 3. Players need to have high knowledge of the game in order to play him well. Viego rewards players for understanding the abilities and playstyles of all champions in the game, and specifically how to team fight with them. When you use your passive in the middle of a fight, you need to know how to use their abilities after you possess them in order to get another reset, and then the process just starts over again. Viego's first strength is that he's an assassin. I just mentioned how Viego is a mix of a couple of different champions and doesn't do anything particularly well, but as an assassin in the jungle, he does bring a couple of things to the table to help him gank lanes and get ahead. His Shroud and his W are good enough for him to get onto a target, especially if the laner has any sort of CC as well. At that point, he is likely going to get a flash or a kill, which is vital to him spiraling out of control and getting strong. As an assassin in the jungle, he will probably be very squishy and susceptible to being one-shot by other assassin or mages, but if he gets ahead, it's almost impossible to play against. Viego's second strength is that he's a strong team fighter. His ability to use his own abilities to get a kill, then possess like the entire team to use their own champions against them is just amazing. And if you can make it to team fights even just a little bit behind, your efficiency will go through the roof and it'll make up for your weak early game. His third strength is sustain. If you can make it past the early game like I just mentioned without having an opposing assassin uber fed on the other team, you're set for the game with your turbo healing. There are some hilarious Viego clips where they just 1v3 because after every possession reset, Viego heals for hundreds of health and has a new set of abilities to use. This healing paired with countless abilities allow him to do an insane amount of damage with an unlimited outplay ceiling while also turbo healing in the process. It's amazing the kind of sustain this guy has. Okay, my first tip to carry in solo queue is to get level 3 as soon as possible and look for easy kills. Now this might change as Viego gets changed, but I like to play him early like Elise and do both buffs and then into Grom. This will allow you to get level 3 and look for a couple of ganks before the Scuttle Crab spawns. Viego doesn't currently have the stats to sit in the jungle and scale up, so you need to be active early on Scuttle Crabs and ganks to either get you or your team ahead. If you sit in your jungle, you'll fall behind to scaling farming junglers and will probably be too weak to make an impact in team fights, so make sure you're looking to make an impact early in the game. Also, the second tip to carry in solo queue is to be patient, especially in team fights. Viego is a squishy champion, and you have the ability to carry team fights, but only if your team does some of the work for you first. It is so easy to get antsy and impatient and want to go in and do something, but if you do, you'll get blown up and miss the opportunity for some massive resets and possession opportunities that will win you the fight. You should also look to use your Shroud to evade your opponents and use your ultimate to execute, then take on their form, and the process of possessions continues. Just like playing Pyke or Yasuo, you have to be patient and wait for your teammates to initiate so that you can clean up. The third tip to carry is to fight skirmishes and team fights around terrain. Now this is likely going to happen anyway when you're a jungler because you're in the river and the jungle a lot, but try to fight in choke points so that you can use your Shroud to cover a large space and give you the bonus stats like attack speed and movement speed that will allow you to move around and get a lot of resets. And finally, a little bit of a supplementary tip is to start to learn the abilities of other champions in the game. If you're not comfortable or familiar with them yet, this is very important to know what you're doing when you possess other champions because it increases the skill ceiling and outplay potential that he has. Okay, so I have a theory about how the meta will treat Viego, and I'm really curious to see if it will play out. And it's that Viego will be very strong at higher ranks like Diamond and above, and very, very weak in low elo. This is because high elo players will understand more champions than the average low elo player, and this obviously just comes with time playing the game, and because of the massive champion skill disparity that we've never seen with the release before. It is going to be hard for Riot to balance this champion across all levels of play. He needs to be strong enough for low elo players to get some use out of him, but not too strong where he is absolutely busted in pro play and high elo. This will likely leave him around the Rise balance level, which is probably 47-48%. The balance team has to be very careful about how they change and tweak this champion because any small change can make him instantly broken or instantly irrelevant. But with that, here are a few changes I think will help Viego. The first is to increase his early stats, whether it's his armor, attack damage, and my personal preference is his attack speed. His ability to clear camps early is just too weak, and this harms his ability to scale. So in my personal opinion, an attack speed per level buff paired with some added armor will just help him out a lot in the early game and kind of bring him up to more level speed. Also, his W is on an 8-second flat cooldown. At least that's what the wiki is telling me right now. But I think that in order to help mask his gap closing weakness early, you know, if the stat changes aren't enough to help, that they could at least start at 9 seconds and then maybe go down to 5 seconds at max rate. It is his second ability to max, so it wouldn't happen for a little while in the game anyways. They could also look at just decreasing the overall flat cooldown to like 6 or 7 seconds seasons. I know that could be really short, but it could give him the added bonuses that he needs. Anyways, there are a lot of different ways that Riot can handle this champion. This is probably the craziest champion that they've ever released, and he's honestly really weak for their standards. So we'll see if he gets any major hotfix or big buffs over the next coming patches, because you know Riot will bring their new guy up to speed. Overall, I'm curious to see how Riot balance and changes his Viego over his first year. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. See ya.